Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tomorrow's Weather Today. Today I have a tropical update for you for the Atlantic Basin, and why I believe we will not be seeing any new tropical systems within the next, probably until July. I don't see anything happening um, in the rest of June, which is about 12 days. Um, So you can see the NHG is calling for nothing in the next 5 days. If we take a look at this picture is showing us dust in the atmosphere, and we can see it dust coming off the Saharan desert. It's called the Saharan air layer, SAL, as we call it for short. And we could see that there's a large area in the Atlantic which is going to be making its way eastward, westward over the next few days, and even get into the southern United States and Mexico. Um, this is a layer of dust and dry air, which would not be good for tropical development, as you need a moist column of air. Um, so this is going to inhibit tropical development over the next few weeks. Looking at satellite loop, we could actually see this on the satellite. Look at all this dust right here. You can see that the brown shade of coloring here. That is the dust right in here, and then there's more out here. And you can see there's no clouds in this area, showing you the dry air. We can also see there's a lot of wind shear happening here too, which is also another factor. You can see the upper level clouds moving from west to east, while the low level clouds are moving about from west to east or east to west. Nice tropical wave down here below the dust, but that's not really going to turn into anything. But otherwise, the Atlantic is pretty much void of thunderstorms, just a lot of cloudiness for the most part. We can go over to water vapor and see the dry air as well on a water vapor. Right in here, here's that dry air, that darker gray, and there's more right in here. Um, so that dry air isn't conducive for thunderstorm development and tropical systems to develop. Looking at the GFS, this will also back up what we are seeing. We can see this area is void of all showers and thunderstorms due to the dry air. The GFS is showing the Eastern Pacific start to get active, and I think once that gets active and then dies off, that will be translated over to the Atlantic if the dry air isn't in place. You can see maybe a tropical wave in the next 2 weeks or so, getting into the end of June, beginning of July. Um, but it's pretty much quiet for the most part. Looking at the 700 to 400 millibar relative humidity, we can see that dry air throughout the Atlantic. Um, this is the dust. This is the Saharan air, and we're going to take an area sounding over here. Let's take a look. We can see it's very dry. The red is your temperature line. The red is representing your temperature throughout the column of air. This is millibars going upwards in the atmosphere, the pressure going up in the atmosphere, and the green line is your dew point. So right at the surface, it is pretty moist with the 76 over 70, 76 degrees Fahrenheit temperature and dew point of 70 degrees. But you can see this air right here, about 900 to 600 millibars, there is a warming. But as the dew point decreases, this is low relative humidity, giving us that dry air, and you can see that goes all the way up to about 200 millibars. That really, the really dry air. So moving this ahead, we can see this really dark brown getting its way into the Caribbean, and then making its way up into the United States, and more dry air persists over this area. I want to take an area sounding in the Caribbean because you can definitely see. Oh, that's too big. Um, you can see that dry air even more prevalent. 83 degrees Fahrenheit at temperature and 76. Um, dew point, but you can see that dry air. These a moist air mass, these two lines would be pretty much right on top of each other, if not very close. And you can see they're very far apart. See, this is more moist down here, and then it's really not. It's very dry as you go up. And that dust pretty much persists. Maybe some higher relative humidities in Central America and the Southern Caribbean, but for the most part, that dry air is going to persist over the next 2 weeks or so. And looking at wind shear really quickly, we can see where our heightened areas of wind shear are in the MDR and the Gulf of Mexico for right now. And that shear pretty much persists for the MDR. Let's take an area sounding, and we can see both the dry air located here and the 65 knots of shear, that's just not conducive at all for thunderstorm development or tropical system development. It's very dry throughout the entire sounding. 30% relative humidity is extremely dry. Taking this ahead even farther, that shear pretty much persists most of the tropical Atlantic. There might be a window for something to develop over the southwestern Atlantic off the coast of the East Coast, but that is yet to be seen. And that shear pretty much it starts to lighten. This is getting a little far south down here, but it definitely starts to lighten towards the end of this run. We'll see if that trend continues. If we go to our climate model, let's go to CFS weekly, and we can see where our precipitation is. And we can see that it's pretty dry for most of the Atlantic. There's some spots of heavier rain, more precipitation, but for the most part, it's going to be dry. So that's also showing the dry layers. Looking at the shear anomalies for the next week, very strong all over the Atlantic. They start to become more average as the upper level winds, according to this model, within the next 6 weeks, which is getting to the end of July. Yeah, this will be the end of July, maybe even the beginning of August. Shear really becomes average, and that when we see maybe our chances going up. We can see higher pressure anomalies for most of the Atlantic, and they start to become average towards the end of this run. Yeah, maybe even some times that they are below average. So in all, I think we're gonna see probably about a 2 to 4 week time span that we are gonna see little to no tropical activity at all in the Atlantic. I think the Pacific might start lighting up. If there is any threat to land, maybe, I don't know, Mexico, but definitely if there's any threat to California or Arizona or New Mexico with the moisture, I will make a video on that, but otherwise I don't think I will. I mainly focus on the Atlantic. Yeah, so that is it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and turn on those post notifications so you never miss a new video, and I will see you all tomorrow.